Hi everybody, my name is Mattia Chiappa, I hope you're doing well. Last week we broke down 10 different orchestration techniques and I have now prepared 10 more for you. But before we take a look at the new ones, I want to have a very quick play through the melody for those of you who weren't here for part 1. So here we go. Alright, in this one I wanted to exploit the sharp 11 sound or the lydian sound, so we have this going on in the background like some sort of ostinato. The ostinato is being carried by clarinets and measure tremolos. On top of that, we have some trills on oboes. And of course, bassoon and contrabassoon are providing the bass. While flutes and piccolos take the melody. The melody is the same as before, I'm just playing with the rhythm a little bit. And we have our trusted glockenspiel, which is as usual playing accents. It's very common to double woodwinds with piano, so I did so. And of course the harp is helping the melody a little bit because we have a lot of rhythm going on and I still wanted the melody to sound, you know, like the melody that we originally had. So here we go. We also have French horns providing the tonic, and it's still part of the background, so you don't really notice it, but it's there. And it's part of the accompaniment as well as clarinets. And that's it, let's have a listen to the whole thing. Now, number 12. This is so loud. Okay, in this one, the melody is being taken by trumpets and horns. I only have 4 horns here, but it would be better to do it with 6 because it's supposed to sound powerful and bright, but I don't have it. So here you go. They do split at the end over here, just because I wanted to have a little counter melody going on and I wanted to call attention on the horns a little bit. So here's what it sounds like. We have some stabs going on the background, basically taken by the rest of the orchestra. It's in the lower register. We have this sort of chord. It looks like I have some wrong notes. I don't know if this is this might be in the percussions, but it would be interesting to find out, maybe. Well, so yeah, we have those chords in the background. We said we have percussions doing accents and doing the most of the heavy lifting. So now let's talk a little bit about what we have in the middle ground. We have this phrase, which is a scale-like pattern being played by violins and flutes and piccolo. And oboes as well, sorry, I forgot to mention it. And then on the clarinets we have something a little bit different. The reason for this is when clarinets are playing really high in their registers, as they do now, they're very bright and powerful, and by dropping some of the lower octaves or higher octaves, I'm deciding basically to emphasize parts of the phrase rather than others. And glockenspiel is doing something very, very similar. We have piano and harp doubling the melody as well. And when you put all this stuff together, it sounds a little bit like this. Can you feel how different it is compared to when it was only violins? Before, it was more like a constant stream of notes which was providing a background, and now it's coming a little bit more alive and bringing a little bit of excitement. Now let's have a listen to the whole thing. So this one was supposed to sound Christmassy, and usually for Christmas music you tend to have these kind of chords. And I did something similar. We now have the melody on violin 1 and 2 and trumpets. We have chords on the French horns. In the same register we have violas playing tremolos doubled by harp. We then have bassoons and bass clarinet providing the bass together with cellos, pizzicatos. And very important, as part of the accompaniment, we have some stuff going on the woodwinds, all of them. So flutes and oboes playing in the same register, and piccolos 1 octave above, and then clarinets. We then have Celeste doubling the top lines. It could have been piano, but since we're going for a Christmassy kind of sound, I thought it would be a little bit more appropriate. And glockenspiel is playing some accents again. When you're trying to recreate these kind of things, you can't possibly not use labels and triangle. Let's play the whole thing. For number 14, I was going to do a Thomas Newman kind of thing, so let's have a listen to that. This is really simple but effective, and for this kind of mood, you usually tend to have like a pedal note on the bottom, which is of course the root of the key, some piano chords on top of it, better if layered with Celeste and like a ton of reverb and, you know, that kind of thing, and something like a string pad in the higher register. Thomas Newman would use a synth pad as well in the middle register, which I didn't. And my version, of course, is similar. So I have a bass pedal tone, some tremolos on violas, and chords on the violins. Rather than using the synth, I've used Flute's flatter tone because they have that granular sort of quality. Let me play a little bit of that. It's very subtle, and solo horn providing a little bit of warmth. And for percussions, as we said before, we have piano and Celeste and Mark III, just to make it a little bit more magical, and some cymbals and timpani rolls, just you know, to beef up the sound of the bass a little bit. Before we play the whole thing, focus on the little counter line we have near the end of the melody. Okay, in a way this is similar to number 3 and also to number 11, I guess. I wanted it to sound a little bit exotic, so I brought in some unusual kind of percussions. We have marimba playing this cool little ostinato. And that is being doubled by piano. Let me play a little bit of that. We have again triangle and sleigh bells. I'm using harp as well to reinforce the harmony a little bit, since these chords could be many things. For example, this minor third could be part of a G7 or part of a D minor or part of a B flat. So yeah, I felt like we needed something to establish like a clear sense of tonality. Same applies, by the way, to this fifth we have on C, from C to G, which could be many things as well. And of course, because I wanted to have a more exotic kind of sound, I've used timpani, but being played with the hot rods. And rather than using the glockenspiel, I've used crotales. And yeah, flute is taking the melody. Number 16. So for this one, I was thinking about doing like a quirky kind of thing, and that, in my opinion, is easier to achieve when you use woodwinds. So basically, I ended up using woodwinds only, and yeah, of course, a little bit of pizzicato strings. And in terms of harmony, I pretty much only use the major 7 chords because they have that dissonance between the tonic and the major 7th. So on the top we have some sort of ostinato taken by flutes and piccolos. And that is doubled by pizzicato violins. Here's the two things together. I mean, you can barely hear the violins, but they're not really supposed to be. Then the melody is being taken by oboes and clarinets. And we have a bass line carried by the bassoons. And we have some pizzicato strings, as we said before, mostly for arranging reasons. They're not really supposed to stick out or be like a predominant kind of thing. Just basically contributing to create that sort of mood. And that's it. Let's play the whole thing. We have some really weird stuff going on right at the end. I basically played this line, which I then reharmonized with lots of chromaticisms and stuff like that. So basically we end up having something that sounds a little bit like this. Number 17. So this is supposed to sound big and grandiose. We're basically going back to the same chord progression that we had at the beginning. We have the melody being played by strings in 4 octaves, doubled by trumpets, which they then split near the end. And big open chords on the lower register, being played by trombones and tuba and bass. On the top, some arpeggios on flutes, oboes, and clarinets going in contrary motion. And these are also doubled on harp and piano. And we also have percussion doing some uplifting, like timpani rolls and bass drum and cymbals. Let's have a listen to the whole thing. This was supposed to sound dark, and the orchestration together with the harmony I used, which is pretty much using polychords combined with augmented chords, is helping to create that sort of mood. On the bottom we have bassoons right here playing a minor triad, and then on the top we have clarinets and flutes arpeggiating between the chords. The first chord is a C major over C sharp minor. Then we move to a B flat augmented, and then C major over F minor. And then we end with a C augmented. We have bassoons on the bottom register. On top of that, we have some chords on the clarinets and bass clarinets arpeggiating between the chord tones. And then flutes. We already talked about this. Notice how I'm leaving holes to make space for the melody register, which is being taken by the English horn now, which is also being doubled by violas, and contributing to create more tensions. We also have some minor trills being played by the first violins. In the background we have harp and piano just doing some arpeggios. Okay, number 19. So this is supposed to have that American heroic kind of sound, and for these sort of things you would usually have solo trumpet over like a pedal tone. For this specific example we have strings providing the harmonic background. So now we have basses and cellos and violas just holding the bottom register, while we have violins doing this kind of thing. The second violin is going in contrary motion. And on top of this we have some stabs on brass and percussions. It's very subtle, but we also have harp doing some glisses. Last one, number 20. Yeah, you don't necessarily see this kind of music a lot in modern days, but I pretty much like anything from the 50s, especially light music, and I just wanted to throw it in here. Alex Bo has a fantastic guide for writing light music, so I'm gonna put a link in the description if you want to check it out. So let's dive into this. If you want to write this sort of music, you want to make use of jazz vocabulary, so that's what I did. I'm gonna show you in a second. So in terms of orchestration, we have pizzicato strings, obviously, and we have violins and violas taking the melody in very close voicings. Doubling the strings, we have glockenspiel as well, because I realized the melody was sounding a little bit different from what we originally had, and I wanted to make sure the original melody was still coming across. So let's have a listen to the glockenspiel on its own first. And that of course works in context with the strings, because what the strings are playing now was based on the original melody. For the bass, we have a walking bass line on the contrabasses. And we also have cellos playing on the off bits. We also have a cool little embellishment kind of thing going on the first bar, which is just flutes, harp, triangle, and muted trumpets. Let's play the whole thing and then we're done. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Hit the like button if you did, and subscribe for more contents like this. And of course, leave a comment below if you have any questions or suggestions for what you think I should do next. If you want to support this channel or you want to have access to extra educational resources, please check out my Patreon page. I've left a link in the description below. That being said, thank you very much for watching and see you soon. Bye!